Of course, it would be a problem for Russia. It would not lead to a catastrophe, at least in the coming year. But at the same time, the decreasing oil prices are very painful for Russia.
Yes.
And now maybe China and India would still buy the large volumes of Russian oil, but with larger discounts, which of course is very harmful for Russian budget at its incomes. And at the same time, if Donald Trump decides to topple the current regime in Venezuela, and Venezuela, from this point of view, through abandoning sanctions, through lifting American and international sanctions, would offer the new volumes of crude oil to the markets. And secondly, if Saudi Arabia and Kuwait decide to act in such a way, it would be clear after the 18th of November when Saudi and Crown Prince and actual ruler of the kingdom, Mohammed bin Salman, visits Washington and meets Trump personally. So, of course, maybe the global market could get rid of the majority of Russian oil. And such scenario is really crucial, is really of dramatic importance for Vladimir Putin. Let's see if Donald Trump would be persistent and consistent enough in pursuing it.
Stanislav, let's unpack the Budapest meeting. So just to, clarify it once and for all, what has happened actually? Why? Who was afraid to go? Who didn't want to go?
I don't know what, let's get back to the thesis. I don't know what Donald Trump heard from Vladimir Putin during their most recent phone conversation, which persuaded him that Budapest meeting could be fruitful. Because the next day, during the conversation of Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, Russian part confirmed that Moscow is by no means prepared for armistice. And I don't think that Putin has promised anything else to Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, as far as his psychotype is concerned, is often prepared to hear what he wants to hear rather than he's actually hearing from their counterparts. He's a very emotional person and often self-deluded. And persuading him that in the truth that in some several facts that do not really exist. And meeting in Budapest, by the way, very important from Viktor Orban's point of view, because Hungary is approaching parliamentary elections in April next year, and now the sociologists predict Viktor Orban could lose the elections. Of course, I'm quite sure, being such a kind of leader like Vladimir Putin, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and so on, with authoritarian features and inclinations, Viktor Orban would not abandon his post so easily. It wouldn't be a simple democratic procedure anyway, and maybe some repressive instruments would be used against Hungarian opposition headed by Peter Magyar and his TISA party. But at the same time, of course, for Orban as an event of electoral campaign, such a summit would be a very big deal, a very big thing. And taking into consideration that both Trump and Putin are very interested in keeping Orban as Hungarian semi-autocrat leader, they would do something in Budapest by April next year. But at the same time, there is no subject for a Budapest meeting right now, because Putin is fully unprepared for ceasefire. Trump needs ceasefire urgently to go to the next stage of his negotiations with Putin about this pact, having as a final goal bringing China to the negotiations table on the conditions acceptable for Trump himself.
Wasn't that even surprising for you that Russian dictator, for the first time after years of their war in Ukraine, he agreed to go to the European nation, country and city like Budapest, even because we know that Putin is afraid of everything. So, and now he's agreed to go there. And I've heard that it was his decision to meet in Hungary. And somehow everybody forgot about the ICC decisions. So it was, quite a unique could be quite a unique step of Russian dictator.
No, as Vladimir Putin explained to us lately, it was Trump's idea to meet in Budapest.
I've heard quite opposite.
We still don't know whose idea it had been, but for Putin, it could be considered as some kind of moral victory, because he enters the European Union, despite the position of the European Union completely against the war in Ukraine and current Kremlin regime. He enters, and he has full security guarantees from both the United States and European country, which Hungary still is, despite all contradictions between Viktor Orban and the leaders of the majority of his United European Union members. And no, so for Vladimir Putin, it was quite a favorable step, despite, of course, all his fears. I don't think he wouldn't trust Trump's and Orban's joint and common security guarantees. He would humiliate the European Union some way, that I'm on your territory, despite your enmity to me.
I've heard, I was reading and heard that inside the EU there was a hysterical reaction on this decision between Trump and Putin. So nobody was saying that publicly, at least I haven't heard that, but everybody was against it.
Of course, it looked very strange, especially as a move to support Viktor Orban and his political ambitions, to stay as Hungarian prime minister for ages. And never to step down as autocrats like Putin and Erdogan, I mentioned. And, it's under the conditions of fragmented world, after the America-centered world ceased to exist. It's a trend in many countries, including developed democracies, not just traditional autocracies like Russia, but in many countries from Hungary to Israel, for instance, where Bibi Netanyahu, their prime minister, is also going to stay for ages and to win the elections again in the next year. And all those leaders, by the way, are going to take over the control over the judicial power. It's their mainly priority goal, as it had been done by Vladimir Putin more than 20 years ago. And in such way, Vladimir Putin proved to be a principal trendsetter for many leaders who wants to get power, but do see no reason to go anyway. And that's why, though, of course, the European democracies and European Union, considering Hungary as a European dissident, were bitterly disappointed by the prospects of such meeting, especially in the context of a potential ceasefire. That's why everybody was against it, of course, but Trump, Putin, and Orban themselves.